Hello and welcome to FinTech Talk. I'm your host, Charles Orton-Jones. Today we're looking at one of the most profound and provocative subjects I think we've ever covered at FinTech Talk. We're looking at the role of artificial intelligence in the law. The legal world is being transformed by AI. It's not just research, it's contracts, it's strategy, it's client relations. And I think it's fair to say most lawyers have only just scratched the surface of what AI can do for them. So in this episode, we're going to be looking at the full breadth of AI across the legal world and the impact it can have. We're going to be looking at the best ways to use it and at some of the pitfalls. And to help us do that, we have assembled a truly world-class panel. So I'd like to introduce our first guest, Sebastian Peters. Sebastian, if you want to turn on your camera. Sebastian is Director of Legal Engineering EMEA at Legora. Legora is a pioneer in the field of AI-powered legal software. Clients include Deloitte, Linklaters, and Bird & Bird, headquartered in Stockholm, which are where I think you are, Sebastian, with offices in London, New York, Denver, and Sydney. Legora recently raised $150 million in a Series C at a valuation of 1.8 billion. So it is truly a tech unicorn. Sebastian, great to have you with us.
Thank you, Charles. My pleasure to be here.
Uh, and joining us, we have Tatiana Pereira. Tatiana is Director of Legal Operations, Risk and Delivery at TD Bank. TD Bank, as many of you may know, is the seventh largest bank by deposits. Its headquarters in the US. It's headquartered in New Jersey and has more than 1,000 locations across the US and Canada. Tatiana, great to have you with us. Your mic is muted, Tatiana, but there
Thank
we
you
go.
for
Great to have
having
you
me
with us.
here.
And completing the lineup from the fintech world, we have Kai Kahembi. Kai is legal counsel at Thread, an AI-first payment issuer processor. Thread works in payments across 44 countries. Kai, great to have you with us.
Thank you so much for having me. Delighted to be here.
Great. Well, Sebastian, I talked about the breadth of the impact AI can have in the legal world, and perhaps you could just begin by giving us just a bit of an overview, because people will be familiar with concepts such as, research. Everyone's used some form of AI to answer questions they've got. This is so much more than that. Just give us an overview of what we're talking about today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Charles. If we start, big picture, lawyers and legal professionals, they do basically three things. They review, they draft, and they research. And we try to help them do all those things in combination, especially with their own data enabled in the process. So if a brief situation that you could imagine, if you are working at a major bank, you're in charge of policies and risk assessment. You might be tasked with drafting a new policy based on a new piece of regulation. You could then use your entire repository of previous policies that you've drafted, ask the AI to draft a new set of policies based on your own precedent, and then take that output and run it across your entire library of contracts that you have entered into over time, giving you a complete assessment of the issues and the risks you might be facing. And then at the end of that, have that being outputted in a more like executive format that you can then forward to your own business lines and your managers. We try to, and others like us, try to automate these kind of workflows and giving a truly end-to-end experience.
Wow. Kai, perhaps you could just tell us how you're using AI in your organization.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, just as Sebastian's kind of touched on, absolutely streamlining workflows to ultimately better and faster, I guess, and more efficiently be able to serve our clients. Also, I suppose in terms of clause tracking to be able to evaluate and assess risk, and ultimately, yeah, regulation tracking software. As we're already seeing, like AI is a constantly moving space, fast evolving. So staying on top of that and being able to effectively advise the business is front and center. So yeah, absolutely very useful there as well.
And yeah, Tatiana, same question to you. I mean, TD Bank, huge organization, does absolutely everything under the sun. It must be difficult to summarize. Perhaps you could just have a go for us. Where's AI making a real impact for you on the legal front?
So we're still on a very early journey of AI, and on that front, we are seeing some advantages already when it comes to timing that the lawyers will be spending review contracts or even research. So that is the impact that we're seeing right now within the technology.
Okay, so it really is broad. So I mean, I love this idea of workflow being involved. So it sounds as if, Sebastian, that we're using, when we talk about AI, I mean, AI means a lot of things. I mean, Google search is AI, your
Yeah,
telephone
true.
uses AI algorithms within. So just tell us about maybe some of the underlying technologies that are being used here, because just for our viewers, it's not just one AI we're talking about, is it? I mean, what's the
No, no.
range that Legora uses?
Yeah, so I don't want to make this a history lesson, but like we usually talk about machine learning, classical machine learning.
Hmm.
That will be like the AI you knew like 3 years ago that is trained on very particular patterns. LLMs come in many shapes and sizes today. We all know about the OpenAI LLMs, Google Gemini, Anthropic Claude, and so on. And for example, at Legora, we use a multimodal architecture. That means that you never have to worry about which model is the best at any given task, but
Hmm.
all the models are sort of collaborating behind the scenes. You can almost imagine you give it a prompt, and the one agent will ask the other ones, "Hey, you're gonna do the reading, I'll do the note taking," and then we get the third guy to actually do the drafting. So they're collaborating behind the scenes to give the user the best experience at any given time.
Multimodal is a great expression because this industry is moving so fast. I mean, month by month, it's week by week, it's sometimes day by day.
Yeah,
New models, entirely new concepts being launched.
yeah.
Um, Kai, it sounds like a job for lawyers to keep up. I mean, how? I mean, you're supposed to be a lawyer, but it feels like the fields of law and technology are now merging. How has it been for you with the emergence of all of these new tools, trying to keep on top of just the variety of AIs out there that could be helping you with your job if only you could, devote the many hours necessary to research each one?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I started off in traditional banking, moved across to crypto, and now obviously being in a fintech, absolutely with AI, it's been a fast-paced couple of years. So absolutely. AI has a tremendous variety of resources. So one thing that I have jumped on the bandwagon with is collating all of the various articles and things that I come across in the week. I try and then drop them into a podcast. So there are a wide variety of different platforms out there. 11 Labs is one that I like to use. But yeah, so you can basically, I guess it's a shifting of what we used to do, but doing things in a more agile way. So, for example, like instead of reading, for example, on the tube on the way into the office, I can now listen to a podcast, and it compiles all of the key, I guess, elements. So yeah, absolutely, it's really useful in terms of, I guess, in terms of just professional development and things like that. But also, there are so many platforms out there as well that are great for horizon scanning and making sure again that
Mm.
changes and regulations and law are kind of brought front and center and flagged from early stages. And also, I think it's helped certainly again from my worldview, getting involved in consultations earlier stages, just because you're aware of more of these regulatory changes through the horizon scanning. So yes, some brilliant tools that are emerging that are helping make my life certainly a lot easier and a lot more fun and pleasurable, I think, in terms of listening to podcasts and things.
That's great. Just for our viewers, if you have any questions and you're watching via the sort of Zoom link, feel free to ask a question and I'll pose it to the panel. I think they'd love to hear your thoughts too. And Tatiana, just how has your job changed since the emergence of these AIs? Because we forget it's only been, I mean, when was ChatGPT launched? Was it 2 years ago? I mean, it's just been a revolution since then. How has your job changed from being, out and out lawyer to maybe being a sort of hybrid technologist in chief for your department?
Great question, Charles. I feel that we should also remind ourselves that just last year, the legal tech funding world actually hit $5 billion, right? So that gives you an idea of the revolution that is coming down the pipeline. In my world, we are, how I said in the beginning, we're starting on an early stage, but what we're seeing is a saving roughly of 5 hours per week just doing research and reviewing contracts, right? So if you use a company like Baker McKenzie as an example, they're saving millions of dollars just during the review of their commercial real estate leasing, right? That gives you an idea of the magnitude of the tool.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a techno optimist. One of the reasons I, introduce this as the most profound and provocative subjects we've covered is because, every field of the law can be and should, in my opinion, be transformed by AI. But it sounds like a big job for law firms to tackle. I mean, Sebastian, just talk us through just how complex it is to make the most of AI. And the law firms you talk to, if you make first contact with a potential client, what do you discover? Are they kind of winging it and experimenting with it almost on a one-to-one basis? I mean, I've talked to some people in the legal world who just have been playing around themselves, which actually sounds like quite a risky thing for them to be doing. How are law firms approaching this? Are they doing it all in-house? And what are the merits of working with a specialist organization such as yours?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we like to say like AI and Legora is like it's a low bar and a high ceiling. So you can very quickly get to early wins, like hey, it can make your email better, it can make your first draft better. I think most people have figured this out by now, but getting to that truly high value state that everyone is going for, like you need to spend a bit more time, you need to be structured around it and have a methodological approach. So most firms they start off with like a general purpose tool, like a Copilot ChatGPT license, but will often come to the conclusion that it's lacking in terms of structure and optimizations around the way that lawyers work. So the big sticky point for most of these firms is around adoption and change management. The technology is there, it's validated. You were kind enough to mention some of our clients. Those are they have gone through this, so it can be done. But so I would say like the use cases and the value is validated, but we need to continuously work with our customers and future customers on how you get it into the lives of tier one professionals, frankly. These are people that are the best at what they do. And we have a lot to prove to them that we can insert ourselves in their daily lives in a way that adds value and not causes a distraction. There are many ways to do that, and we're happy to dive into it. But yeah, that's definitely where like the initial conversation goes when we enter a new customer. Yeah.
Okay, so that's really interesting. So it sounds like the frontier really is that the technology is now getting increasingly proven and reliable, but it's rolling it out in a structured way. I mean, Sebastian, again, have you seen the role of things like the role of an AI compliance officer yet? Is it too early to talk about that kind of role? I mean, do you see law firms appointing the AI specialist?
Um, we are actually seeing that. So just from my own neighborhood, I'm Danish originally. I just saw that Novo Nordisk, our biggest company in Denmark, like have a public ad for like a chief AI officer. So it's definitely on the agenda. Compliance is a big part of that. And you want someone with a strong technical insights into how these technologies work, what the risks are, but also then the human side of things, how the technical integration and the human integration. So that's true.
Takes a lot of skills. And Tatiana, I can see you nodding away there. How are you dealing with it? Do you have someone you've appointed, the kind of AI officer in chief, or all the lawyers, such as yourself, trying to have, dual roles, law and tech?
Actually, Charles, what I would like to add to Sebastian is that we have a perfect example of Harvey AI, right? Initially, they start roughly with 300,000 active files, I would say, and now there are almost 10 million files, right? That's an increase of 36 times. So if you think about adoption is the key word, right? So making sure that we are implementing a tool that is not just, going to deliver a functionality, but there is value on the daily tasks, right? So we are seeing that. We are seeing models being really focused on legal, because ChatGPT is still a little bit no sure kind of behavior, but Harvey AI, as a perfect example, has been really focusing on the industry, and we are seeing great results from that company.
Yeah, results interesting. And Kai, let's talk about results. And I love the fact you're a born researcher. You're collecting information, you're sharing it with your company. How do you see things? I mean, Sebastian talks about these being mature technologies. Well, they are for a specialist like him. But what are you seeing in your own company and when talking to maybe, legal colleagues in other companies? Are these, in your opinion, the AI, do you feel as though it's a mature technology, or are you still in the research phase, or are you actually deploying on a very deep level AI? Where are you?
Yeah, no, that's a brilliant question, actually. I think it depends entirely. I mean, being in the fintech industry, where we're not afraid to kind of get to grips with new and innovative ideas, but then when you perhaps look at the world of traditional finance and private practice legal, again, it's slightly different in terms of the utilization and the use cases, and some of those, I guess, that Sebastian and Tatiana have kind of outlined. So absolutely, in terms of things that are front and center, I suppose, it is the usability, like what is it actually going to do, what is the use case, and how is it ultimately, certainly from my perspective, going to make my service delivery to my client, which is Thread, and ultimately its clients, better and more comprehensive. So yes, on the one end, we've got more narrow AI that we implemented, I guess it almost feels like decades ago. You've got spam filters, that's a form of AI. Maybe they're not the best all the time. But yeah, so we've got things like that all the way up to sort of streamlining workflows, making sure that initial drafts of contracts are pulled through, which are then speeding up, I guess drafting processes for myself and my colleagues, and then ultimately that means that contracts are out the door a bit faster. So yes, I think certainly in terms of the generative AI, we're still at that early stage in terms of adoption within legal teams, but it's definitely getting better. I'm seeing, I mean, use case on use case, and definitely different RFPs. And when we've looked at different solutions, I mean, even in the last year, we're seeing massive development. So yeah, very changing space, but I guess it depends on the lawyer that you're asking ultimately as to how it's used.
Yeah, well, let's just talk about the LLMs because I'm a huge fan. The potential is massive. But Sebastian, the question inevitably in these discussions is going to be stuff like reliability, hallucinations, or hallucitations. I've heard it described as. Where are we with LLMs doing things like drafting contracts? Are they considered reliable? Is there a way of fine-tuning them to try and reduce the amount of hallucinations? What are your views on this?
No, yeah, absolutely. And I think any legal professional is have heard the stories about lawyers being caught with the fingers in the wrong cookie jar. So no, that's something we take super seriously. At Legora, we have a lot of engineers that all they work on are citations, and having the citations being linked directly to a document that you can then open from the citation and see the specific paragraph that it's citing. This will often be based on like your own content or a legal source that we've made available. And that means like if you have great content yourself, if you are like an institution with many years of knowledge that have built up over time, often it lives in a dormant SharePoint, you can now plug that in and suddenly activate maybe 20 years of dormant knowledge that a first year associate joining straight out of university can now tap into, and maybe not act as someone with 20 years of experience, but certainly act as someone a lot further ahead in their career than they actually are. So we think we have a great solution for this, and we see a lot of the more younger professionals really being delighted about how it enables them.
That's fascinating. And Tatiana, so what are you allowing AI to do in the most sophisticated sense, and what are you not allowing AI to do? I mean, I'm guessing you're not allow AI to write contracts or legal documents from scratch.
That's right. And I love it how Sebastian phrased, right? This is really, AI is here to really facilitate the lawyer's day-to-day life, right? It's not to replace them, but really to make sure that they're focusing on what is important, the strategy of the contract, right? And we can see Charles as a great example, also Core Group, right? Now they are leveraging AI, and we can see when they are running the due diligence for their merging and acquisitions, they have a saving of 25% on timing. Right there is the value, right? Instead of you being there just reviewing the contracts and doing the due diligence, now the lawyer can allocate time to focus on something else that actually matters to the company.
Okay. And Kai, I mean, that's interesting. I mean, being more efficient saves on time, which translates to better fees for clients, hopefully more satisfied clients. How do you see it? I mean, AI can deliver savings in time, costs, or for you, is it more about quality and coming up with new ideas? I mean, the creativity of AI is phenomenal, and I'd love to be. I think I may be repeating myself, but I love the fact that Sir Timothy Gowers, who won the Fields Medal for mathematics, said he used quite an ordinary LLM to try and tackle a mathematical problem that he'd spent an hour or two on. And he said, within minutes, it was drawing in lemmas, as he described it, from different fields he'd never considered. So he says now, whenever he does maths, he's using AI to augment his thinking, to come up with ideas that he might well have come up with in a week or a month. But now he's just constantly referring and throwing ideas around. So what is it for you? Is it about time, cost, or is it about strategy and creativity?
Yeah, I think you've actually hit the nail on the head with all three. I think faster, I think especially in the legal industry, we're very aware that faster doesn't always mean better. But it's about, time saving on things that actually should be and can be made faster. So for example, something that's always front and center for me, and especially like which Laura does very well, that Sebastian touched on, is the traceability. Traceability, explainability. So can we show exactly where things came from, and auditability? Can we validate that actually it is a correct piece of case law? Actually, this does come from somewhere that's authentic and verifiable. Because ultimately, I think what any client, whether or not it's a business or an individual, is looking for is that trust element, especially from their legal teams. So it's all to that core, really. Like how do we validate those things?
And maybe Charles, if I can add something there that I think is interesting, is what we are seeing now to build on what both Tatiana and Kai is saying is like the AI is moving from becoming a productivity tool and moving into a delivery tool as well. So like we want to enable that Tatiana and her preferred external counsel can then start to collaborate in a AI native space. So it's not just like writing faster, but like also sending it over to your client or to your counsel, getting their opinion using their best practice. So then it's like both parties become more enabled, get faster to that deep value that you're actually paying for.
Great. So Sebastian, I
And
mean, I'm just okay. Tatiana, please go ahead.
sorry, I was just going to add, I agree completely with Sebastian, because let's be honest, like this whole legal transformation is not about replacing lawyers. It's really liberating the lawyers to be able to do the work that, the machine cannot do, right? So now that's what we're seeing.
Sebastian, just riff on that a little longer, because it sounds like what you're saying. I mean, I'm very conscious that there are so many little apps out there and tools, it could become messy. But I think what you're alluding to is really, it's possible to have a kind of operating system where AI is embedded at each stage.
Yeah.
So you've got a platform with everything managed and controlled in a structured and orderly way. So we avoid that chaos.
Well, you're
That's right.
pulling on the threads that we are seeing as well. We recently launched something we call the Legora portal. It's basically a way that you like either as a law firm, you can expose your templates, your prompt templates, your knowledge libraries for your preferred clients, and they can activate that knowledge in a platform that is like unique to you as a firm. But what's really cool is you can also take this in-house. So again, if Tatiana, to use here's an example. You have a very big business of contract managers, procurement people, and compliance officers that might be customers in your business. So setting that external face up where a team member of your own organization can pull a contract that is validated with your own knowledge, but from a legal perspective. So this is how we will transcend productivity gimmicks and actually cause like real change that have knock-on effects very long way into your business.
I can see you nodding away there. It's resonating with you. So it's not just a few tools here and there. It's almost like an AI-enabled enterprise, start to finish.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd just kind of tack onto that. I think instead of it being almost like viewing AI as a cost saving and efficiency tool, I view it as a cost reallocation tool. Like what the time and money that we were spending doing other things, we can now actually repurpose into other places and make things more efficient. And ultimately, one thing that I've actually seen, I think it's one of the first use case actually that Thread took up was knowledge sharing. The ability to point out to clients and customers where things are so that they can self-serve better. So it's a great tool for actually, I guess, arming each other with more knowledge and an ability to do things, and I guess advance our industries further.
Okay, we have a question from the audience, which I think is pretty pertinent at this point, which is, how is AI likely to transform approvals, filings, and regulatory submissions over the next 12 months? Tatiana, over the next 12 months, I mean, is it already transforming approvals, filings, and regulatory
That's
submissions?
right. So let's not forget, Charles, like daily, we receive around over 200 compliance updates, right? So if you think about it, we're talking about thousands of regulatory bodies sending you, compliance requests. So manually, that would be almost impossible, right? So just having that tool to facilitate the work, and as Sebastian referred earlier, and validating the information and working with our clients and make sure it's applicable or not, that's an advantage that we'll never have like a year ago. So for me, that's a win-win when we're talking about billable hours, right? Because that's what matters at the end of the day.
Okay. And Sebastian, what do your cutting edge clients do? I mean, you've got some real, blue chip names in your client base, like Mason
absolutely.
Bernberg. Yeah. What are they? How are they grappling with this? Are they fully implemented? Sort of AI assisted approvals, filings, and submissions.
Yeah, so we actually built a feature that basically does this one thing that the asker is presenting. It's like in our Word plugin where you can have like any type of form with empty cells or placeholders, and you can drop in unstructured data that fills out that forms for you. So it maps out like the data is on the right side of the screen where it doesn't need to go on the left side of the screen. And then you can start like going back to this workflow chain of thought that then you can build on top of that. You can almost build step functions. If some in the audience have ever done RPA bots, 10 years ago, you can start to do things like that with agents. So that's where like a lot of the hype around agents come from, is because they can do more than one thing at the same time. And if you set that up in a user-friendly way, then it becomes super powerful.
Okay. I'd just like to touch very briefly on maybe some of the lesser known uses. We've discussed the obvious stuff, in research and filings, but maybe stuff like, I mean, Kai, you're a born researcher. What can you think of that AI is being used for that maybe some of our viewers might not be? I mean, stuff like, I don't know, cost predictions and forecasts, or I don't know, playing a kind of devil's advocate, running strategy through an AI and saying, what have we missed? Imagine you are a provocative lawyer. What are maybe the different approaches? So Kai, give us some of maybe the lesser known uses of AI in the law.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's brilliant, as you just said, to kind of validate and test your arguments. Goodness, I mean, there are so many different use cases, and I think as we see the evolution of artificial intelligence, for sure, it's only going to take off. I mean, currently we're already kind of stepping out into the AI being able to do what humans can do, and it's AI is a specialist and we are the strategists. So as that moves, goodness, I mean, the capabilities, I mean, even if we look at yeah, as Sebastian was saying, AI agents that could literally streamline my entire day for me, for example. So, that could be my calendar invites, blocking out time for me to review, time to meet with clients, and it's all organizing all of that for me. So actually what our day to day might look like in 3 to 5 years time could be increasingly shifted actually as AI becomes more and more integrated into our existing, I guess, platforms, workflows, and ultimately what our clients expect from us. Because yeah, let's face it, we're moving to a world where everything is more instantaneous. We expect our cards to work immediately. We expect to be able to transfer funds. So yeah, I can only see it increasing.
Tatiana, perhaps you could just address the same question. I mean, there's some ways in which law firms could be using AI in maybe just unexpected ways.
Yeah, a perfect example, Charles, would be water coolers, right? They have done a research where they have proven that, legal research normally can take hours and hours, let's say 5 hours a day, and now they are able to do in an hour. So that gives you an idea of the power of the tool, right? But let's not forget again, like, it's not about replacing lawyers, it's all about enabling the lawyers to do the work that they were born to do, be strategists, and making sure they are defending, the interest of the business.
I might just ask you guys, because we have a lot of fintech viewers, is how this will change the accessibility of law. I'm particularly thinking of startups. Fintech they don't have the budget to often engage in great legal endeavors. It's a huge cost. I mean, Kai, is this going to slash costs for certain small, mundane, routine things for startups, and therefore make a more entrepreneurial society as a result?
That's a brilliant question. I was actually talking to a friend who's in private practice about this the other day, and I think the short answer is yes. The long answer is no. I think it shifts the dynamic. So if you already have a client who's empowered and they come in with a kind of an understanding of what it is that they're looking for, and they've got a kind of a rubric from an AI chatbot or something, absolutely, then you've got to provide them with more of an explanation as to what service and value added service you're delivering to command certain fees. So absolutely, I think in terms of document review and things that trainee lawyers, I think traditionally were spending hundreds and hundreds of hours doing, and could almost spend their entire training period doing. If AI can do it in a couple of hours, what was taking weeks and months to do previously, like how do you justify that kind of fee? And I think the long and short of it is ultimately clients, whether or not it's a company or an individual, are coming to lawyers because of that trust factor, where people, and they're coming to us with a problem. And as great as it might be to, I don't know, run an initial question through a chatbot or something and get an instant answer, sometimes actually it's that process of talking through actually what your concern is, what's your plan for the future. If you're a startup, how exactly can you not only get it set up but scale your business in the future? What are the things that you might want to be aware of in the on the horizon? So it's all of those kinds of things that lawyers can bring to the table and do bring to the table. So it's as Tatiana and Sebastian have kind of touched on, it's freeing up our time, making sure that we can get through the sort of mundane.
That's it. And Sebastian, yeah, I mean, so the law is not just allowing people to do the same tasks but a little faster. It's changing law. It's changing accessibility. I mean, Sebastian, how are your clients, changing their provision of services because of AI? It must make the provision of basic services just so much faster, cheaper, allows them to win clients who maybe previously couldn't afford their services, such as small companies and startups in the, I was talking about fintech, but across the startup world.
Yeah. Like, no, you're definitely touching on the $1 million question here, like even $1 billion question. So we definitely see that some tasks become commoditized. It's no longer like you can't. There's some things you just can't charge for. Just like in the past, there was tasks that were manual, they're now completely automated. So some things become more accessible, and then the question is like, what are the knock-on effects of that? I think we'll see the iceberg effect, that as ice melt from the top of the iceberg, more of the stuff underneath the ocean comes up. So now it becomes economical to work on matters that were smaller. So like maybe a 500K dispute claim can suddenly become worthwhile pursuing, where in the past it would be completely swallowed by cost. So I don't think lawyers need to be worried about being put out of work, but they need to have a higher case velocity, and maybe they need to be more commercial in nature and focus more on case acquisition.
Yeah, so I mean, Tatiana, is this changing what it is to be a lawyer? I mean, the old days of fusty books and lawyers who
printing all your papers around the office. Yeah, I would like to challenge a little bit the audience and say the question now shifts from should we use AI to how we actually should be implementing it, right? And if you think further, like based on your question, it's small shops and small law firms. Here's a great opportunity for cost saving, right? It's all about the billable hours. So you want to make sure that your lawyers are focusing on making the money and bringing the revenue. So the only way then they're going to be able to do that is embracing the technology, right? And there are tons of new softwares that are really specific for legal services. Like I said earlier, Harvey AI is one of the big examples I have that they also focus on the small companies, and that opens the door as well.
And just final question, because we've already rattled through half an hour very, very rapidly, is Kai, let's just go forward maybe 5 years about what the law firm or legal faculty, in-house counsel maybe, is going to look like. Because, I mean, so far, just be a little speculative for us.
Yeah.
AI is currently, thin end of maybe a 2-ton wedge. We've started to see AI being embedded at different stages of the law firm. What are we going to be talking about in 5 years' time? What's the role of AI going to be?
Yes, so absolutely. I think teams will become much more lean, much more specialist. I think there'll be an increased focus on data, where it's coming from, especially in global organizations. This is going to make organizations, whether or not you like them, more global. Modeling and behavior for sure is going to be a hot topic of conversation, whether or not AI is delivering the outcomes that you want, and ultimately ESG as well. How sustainable are we in our AI adoption is going to be a top topic of conversation, I think, in the next 5 years.
Yeah, and same to you, Tatiana. What's it going to be like in 5 years' time? Are we going to see, AI front and center of every legal department?
I do believe, and the reality is AI has, really tripled in the last year, and the early adopter advantage is closing. So the sooner you get to that tool, the better and well-trained your team will be, right? So we have to really embrace it. And as Sebastian said earlier, it's not about replacing the lawyers, it's about putting our revenue where it matters.
And Sebastian, just to finish this off, therefore, just give us an idea of what law firms should be doing right now to get to that position in 5 years' time, because a lot of law firms or fintechs or banks with in-house counsel will be thinking, well, okay, but we're experimenting. We've got a bit of this, a bit of that. But one of the messages of today's talk has been people need to be a lot more systematic than that. You cannot just have little floating around applications. This is going to be a top to bottom. We talked about almost an operating system for law firms. Is that the vision they need to become a law firm with a sort of OS that controls everything, start to finish?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you need to realize that while the AI and the technology is exponential, human adoption and our brains are linear. So the cost of getting on the train late is much higher than you actually think. So even if you are a skeptic, you want to have a structured approach to this early on. So when the curve really takes off, that you are along for the ride. Otherwise, it'll be tough to follow up with. And you need to make sure that you have people that specialize in this kind of, we call them legal engineers, former lawyers that are doing implementations. You need to make sure you have someone like that that speaks the language of your end users, like that, and not just talking fluff to say blankly, but also understands the technology and can bridge the two worlds.
Wow. I can imagine it's going to be very hard to recruit young lawyers to work for a firm that isn't at the
Yes.
cutting edge of this. Well, guys, I think that wraps up. We've covered so much ground in this session. I said it was going to be profound and provocative, and it truly was. I really hope this revolution makes law more accessible, makes it cheaper, and really just unlocks legal services, in particular for startups. But it does seem that AI really can be used not just for research, contract writing, but from every aspect of the legal world. And we're just at the start of this revolution. It's going to be very exciting to see where it goes. So, Sebastian, Tatiana, Kai, thank you so much for your expertise. It's hugely appreciated. So from myself and the team at FinTech Talk, thank you.